room basement tunnel, you have to leave substantial forces behind, or else the enemy will re-infiltrate. You have to do this progressively, sequentially. You have to clear and hold, and then continue farther, spread the oil spot. In fact, it really should be thought of as a counterinsurgency operation, not just a conventional military operation, because you are fighting among the people, and because of the importance of not overlooking what happens after Hamas is destroyed. And by the way, the spokesman today said they also intend to dismantle the Hamas political structure, the political wing. That's different from the military wing, which is the Hamas terrorists and also the Islamic Jihad terrorists.
Right.
But then the question is, what next? Who's going to take over? Who's going to oversee? There has to be nation building. There's going to be restoration of basic services, repair of damaged infrastructure, getting schools, markets, clinics all reopened. You know that. We've learned all of that sometimes the hard way. We learned in the fight to Baghdad that you've got to have a very good plan with a lot of different assumptions, because once you take down the regime and you turn to the folks that said, just get us to Baghdad, Dave, we'll take it from there, that plan proved inadequate. So I think the big subject of discussion, I suspect already between the Israeli generals and the political authorities, is about what comes after. They're going to take enormous casualties to do this. I believe that it's right to destroy Hamas, but you can't have that for naught. This can't be another case where you mow the lawn all the way down to the dirt in this case, but then you pull back out and the remnants will be able to reconstitute themselves. So what follows? Could there be an interim international authority? What is it?
I doubt. I mean, the ambassador told me Sunday that they do not want to reoccupy Gaza. So I mean, I think
the president has said don't do it.
Yeah.
So it has to be some other. So what?
The United Nations or the Arab League or some group, but
they're going to have to fight, because there will be an insurgency. You know, they'll try to retake control, the remnants of Gaza, and there will be of Hamas. There will be some of those there. So this is the real challenge, Jake, and I'm not sure it's getting quite enough attention. In the book, we talk about the importance of a strategic leader getting the big ideas right. This is crucial. Getting the strategy.
Right.
Vengeance is not a strategy.
And that's my next question.
The component is some, but you have to do more.
And that's my next question, because I've been thinking about how, and understandably so, but how immediate and swift the response by the Israeli military was in the aftermath of Hamas's barbaric terrorist attack on October 7th, which of course reminds me of 9/11. And you remember when I interviewed you, when I did the documentary about 20 years of war in Afghanistan, and I also interviewed General McChrystal for that same documentary, and he told me something interesting, and I want to get your take on it, because I said, if you could go back, what would you do differently? Listen to your colleague and friend, General McChrystal.
Right after the 9/11 attacks, I would have made a decision inside the U.S. government to do nothing substantive for a year. And what I mean by nothing, no bombing, no strikes, etc. I would have gone around the world as the aggrieved party and built up a firm coalition for what ought we do about Al-Qaeda. I would have done a mass effort to train Americans in Arabic, Pashto, Urdu, Dari, to get ourselves ready to do something that we knew would be very, very difficult.
Now, I said to him, if you were president, you also would be impeached for not doing for not doing anything after the 9/11 attacks.
But he has a point.
But he has a point, and
he does have a point.
And I want you to talk about that, about the idea of you get it horrifically hit, but you take a breath before responding.
Yes. Look, keep in mind, this is much worse than 9/11 in relative terms.
It's like 35,000 people being killed.
Jake, it's actually over 40,000 now, because they're up to 1,300. So yes, and so that response, the desire for vengeance, is absolutely understandable, and there should be vengeance. There should be destruction of the organization that did this, but not if you haven't thought through what comes after that. And that's, I think, the component of this that certainly is not yet visible. I'm sure that they're wrestling with this. I'm sure part of the reason the president is then going to Amman, Jordan, is to start discussing that. And one would hope that some of the Arab countries in particular in the region that have often expressed sympathy for the Palestinians will contribute to some kind of effort that would enable the rebuilding. And so, and Prime Minister Netanyahu, I think, should provide a vision or what life will be like for the Palestinian people. Not just in Gaza, by the way, but also in the West Bank, something that has just been looming out there for quite some time in any event. Let's let this be a catalyst. Remember, after the 73 war, all of a sudden you had peace between the two warring factions, between Egypt and Israel, and arrangements with Syria and Jordan as well. Of course, a very different situation. Henry Kissinger, I was just in a meeting with him, he could call 4 people and get that deal done. President of Egypt, Assad in Damascus, the king in Amman, and Golda Meir. There's nobody here to do that. So this is much more challenging in that regard. And I'd contend that the military task here is more challenging as well. It's not tank on tank out in the desert. Certainly there was an existential moment for Israel when Egypt achieved the early success. But once that was resolved, that was a straightforward military operation. This is much more than just an offensive operation, a clear hold and build. You have to then have what's going to follow.
Absolutely. Retired General David Petraeus. Maybe they should call you. You'd be good to helm this. The book is Conflict, The Evolution of Warfare from 1945 to Ukraine. Please check it out. Coming up, CNN is live on the ground in the Israeli town of Sderot. It's essentially become a ghost town since the Hamas terrorist attacks. Up next, you're going to hear what the residents who decided to stay there are saying. Stay with us.
ADT Self-Setup, featuring Google Nest products. Now you can easily install your system that's backed by ADT's 24/7 monitoring with no long-term contracts. So you have a home with no worries. Brought to you by ADT.
Stop starving your skin and start feeding it the nutrition it craves. True Skin has what skin craves. True Skin treats skincare like skin nutrition with hard-working plant-powered blends that nourish for radiant, healthy-looking skin. True Skin, get what your skin truly craves.
I was a teacher for 30 years, and today I'm a grandmother of 9. Technology is essential to our everyday lives, and that's why I'm concerned about our foreign adversaries' influence over the internet. Our adversaries believe in censorship and control. That's not the future I want for my grandchildren or yours. Congress needs to protect our democratic values and strengthen, not weaken, American technology.
How white do you think your teeth really are? Let's try the tissue test. Oof, still yellow. Whitening toothpaste can only do so much.
There's Toothpaste White and there's Crest 3D White Strips White. They whiten like a $400 professional treatment.
So much whiter.
Crest.
And Doug says you can customize and save hundreds on car insurance with Liberty Mutual. He hits his mark center stage and is crushed by a baby grand piano.
Are you replacing me?
With this guy?
Customize and save with Liberty Bibbity.
He doesn't even have a mustache.
Oh, look, it's Boo Boo.
Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 Liberty.
Your shipping manager left to find themselves, leaving you lost. You need to hire.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Indeed Instant Match instantly delivers quality candidates matching your job description. Visit Indeed.com/hire.
Wow.
Incredible. Amazing.
My go-to is Lumify eye drops.
Lumify dramatically reduces redness.
In 1 minute.
And look at the difference.
My eyes look brighter and whiter.
For up to 8 hours.
Lumify? It's kind of amazing.
See for yourself.
Every day, more dog people and more vets are deciding it's time for a fresh approach to pet food. They're quitting the kibble and kicking the cans and feeding their dogs dog food that's actually, well, food. Developed with vets, made from real meat and veggies, portioned for your dog, and delivered right to your door. It's smarter, healthier pet food. Get 50% off your first box at thefarmersdog.com/realfood.
When you get approved with Drive Time, you get the real deal. It's the Drive Time Real Deal Maker.
Lets you customize the real down payment and monthly payment of the car you want to buy.
That's super smart.
And the deal you make on your phone is the deal you pay.
You make the deal yourself.
Get the real deal at drivetime.com.
The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper is appointment viewing on Sunday nights. One whole story, one whole hour. The world's best journalists dig deeper into the stories they can't ignore. The Whole Story with Anderson Cooper, Sunday at 8 on CNN.
I was shocked that I had cancer because there isn't cancer in my family.
I didn't know you could die from skin cancer. And then I go in 2 weeks later to get my diagnosis of melanoma.
Melanoma is the deadliest form of skin cancer.
Protect yourself by being sun safe. Check yourself with monthly skin exams. Inform yourself. Skin cancer is real. Learn more at saveyourskin.ca.
Coventry, even a term policy for cash or a combination of cash and coverage with no future premiums.
Someone needs to tell them that they're sitting on a gold mine and you have no idea. Hey guys, you're sitting on a gold mine.
Come on, do you hear that?
I don't hear anything anymore.
Find out if you're sitting on a gold mine. Call Coventry Direct today at 800-392-7600 or visit coventrydirect.com.
I'm Rafael Romo in Tel Aviv, Israel. This is CNN.
We have a live look now at Joint Base Andrews. President Biden is expected to board Air Force One momentarily to depart on his trip to Israel and the region. He is going to do this even after the horrific hospital blast in Gaza, though the administration is expected to defer to Israel on who was ultimately responsible for that attack. Israel, of course, blaming Islamic Jihad. They say that it was a missile misfire. CNN's Nick Robertson is in Israel just north of Gaza, where there seems to be an eerie calm before the storm.
Sderot, a mile from Gaza, is deserted. 90% of residents have gone. Even abandoned pets are learning when to run. Bolting with incoming rocket warnings. It is an eerie place. The police station, overrun by Hamas 10 days ago, bulldozed flat. You can hear the sound of the drones in the sky all the time. Over here, the shell casings from the firefight, still here. Bullet holes in the wall, still there. It's like everyone is waiting for the next move. For local officials, that next move is President Biden's visit.
I don't know what Biden is thinking. I wish I knew. If I could be a little bird in his ear, I'd tell him, hey, if you take a stance now, I believe that if they will take a stance and not fold, we'll be able to get our people back, all the hostages.
Over the years, Sderot has become synonymous with resistance to Hamas's rockets. It's one of the most fired upon Israeli towns.
But America is a true friend.
Today, politicians here to show their solidarity. Boaz Bismuth is a member of the Prime Minister's Likud party.
We shall never put our friends in America in a position where they will feel uncomfortable, meaning we're not going against civilians.
And Biden, is he going to tell you that to respect that and for you to take that very tough decision, do not go into Gaza right now, because that will just inflame the region?
I think that President Biden and any American president knows exactly the morale of the Israeli army, and we know how to put limits to ourselves. But there is one thing we shall not put a limit, is the fact that Hamas will not exist.
To do that, a military ground incursion into Gaza appears inevitable. Along the border with Gaza here, there's a real sense of calm before a possible storm. The number of strikes, compared to the last few days, seems to be down. And that town you can see there with the tower blocks, that's Beit Hanun. It was one of the first places the Israelis targeted in their 2014 incursion. And it could be again now. So what does this happen? Tour guide Robbie Berman came to Sderot to tell journalists about his fund to offer Gazans money for helping free hostages.
He's a Palestinian.
His message for President Biden is typical of many here.
The pressure on Arabic countries to allow those innocent Arabs, those innocent Palestinians in Gaza who are not supportive of Hamas, to get them visas to go into other Arab countries.
And all those Palestinians that would go out into other Arab countries, does that not for Palestinians look like 48 or 67 just losing their homeland again?
Yeah, and it's sad. It's sad for the Palestinians. Life is sad, war is sad, collateral damage is sad. I feel for the innocent Palestinians. Enough. We can't live under this terror anymore.
More of that terror in Sderot just hours before President Biden's anticipated arrival. Several missiles from Gaza crashing into the town. This looks like the fin of the missile over here. And you can see where it came. It smashed through the outer wall, through that window, through this wall here, ending up here. Everything inside the house torn apart. Fortunately, when it hit, no one was home. Hard to remember a time in the Mideast when an American president's powers were more tested. And I think it's really striking, particularly as we've heard from so many Israeli politicians. We've heard from the Israeli Defense Force this evening, from the President's office, from the Foreign Ministry as well, about this hospital, that it was an Islamic Jihad rocket error that caused all the casualties in the hospital this evening. The politician we're speaking to there talking about not wanting to embarrass President Biden, not causing civilian casualties. And I think perceptions here take over. The environment President Biden comes into is one where in Gaza the perception is inevitably going to be that this was, despite what Israel says, this was an Israeli missile strike. It's going to be very hard to break that perception. So trying for President Biden to try to move the ball forward, to try to calm Israel's strength of feeling at the moment about crushing Hamas and how to do it, to General Petraeus' points there in your discussion just a little while ago, Jake. This is going to be a huge, huge challenge in this now very, even more emotionally challenged environment.
Indeed. Nick Robertson in Sderot, stay safe, my friend. Thank you so much. A live look again at Air Force One. President Biden will depart in just moments for this high-stakes trip to Israel and the region. Back home, of course, his potential 2024 rivals are weighing in on the conflict. One of them will join me next. Stay with us.
Meet Milo. He's part border collie and part party animal. Meet the new Bissell Little Green Hydro Steam Pet. It's part steam-powered stain remover and part party animal patrol. Bissell, a new breed of clean.
New truck?
Yeah. Schwann's Home Delivery has a new name.
Yellow.
No, I think the H is silent.
Yeah.
What?
What?
Schwann's Home Delivery is now yellow. Order now at yellow.com.
Young lady who was mid-30s, a couple of kids, recently went through a divorce. She had a lot of questions when she came in. I watched my mother go through being a single mom. At the end of the day, my mom raised 3 children, including myself. And so once a client knew that she was hurt, we were able to help her move forward. Your client won't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
I wish for the amazing new iPhone 15 Pro. Sean.
Do you mean this one, the one with titanium? Switch to Verizon, you can trade in any iPhone and get the new iPhone 15 Pro on them.
It's your last chance to trade in any iPhone for a new iPhone 15 Pro on us, only on Verizon.
One roll of a lifetime, one sore throat. But she had enough. She took the Mucinex InstaSoothe sore throat lozenges. Show your sore throat who's boss. Mucinex InstaSoothe works in seconds, lasts for hours.
It'll be an opportunity to travel the world and shoot all these amazing scenes.
We can shoot the whole thing in Turkey.
You see, Turkey has it all.
Before and bath fitter. Before and bath fitter. If you have a before bath, now's the time to call Bath Fitter to get a beautiful after. With our unique tub over tub process, there's no mess or stress. Spend smart on a beautiful new bath done right, backed by a lifetime warranty. Join over 2 million happy customers who know it just fits. Bath Fitter. Visit bathfitter.com to book your free consultation.
The first time you made a sale online with GoDaddy was also the first time you heard of a town named Dinosaur, Colorado.
Just got an order from Dinosaur, Colorado.
Start an easy-to-build, powerful website for free with a partner that always puts you first. Start for free at GoDaddy.com.
Sidney Crosby just continues to produce because he has a great hockey mind.
Get ball, rollers, upstairs.
Detroit's a dangerous team, and they're looking to make that next step.
They score!
It'll be a fun year.
Money in the bank!
Penguins, Red Wings, tomorrow at 7 on TNT.
We're here with Chris Cunahan of our local leaf filter. Tell us how leaf filter is different from every other gutter protection on the market.
With Leaf Filter's patented filter technology, there are no gaps, no openings, no place for debris to get in at all. We install Leaf Filter on your existing gutters. You'll never have to climb a ladder to clean out your gutters again.
You know, that's peace of mind and then some. So, how do people sign up?
To schedule your free inspection, call 833-LEAF FILTER today. Our agents are standing by.
This is the #1 hair supplement in Scandinavia, and let me tell you, they know what they're doing with beauty.
Find us at Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Amazon, or NewNordicUSA.com.
We just shipped our millionth monthly coffee subscription box, so we're sending custom thank you gifts to our team. Our custom ink rep is just as excited as we are and knows what great quality products to get. Celebrate your milestones with custom gear. Get started today at customink.com.
I'm Lauren Fox on Capitol Hill, and this is CNN.
Amid this conflict between Hamas and Israel and the dysfunction among House Republicans, there is, of course, also another big story, the race for the 2024 Republican presidential primary. Joining us now is Republican presidential candidate, Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina. Thank you so much for being here. It's so good to see you.
Hey, good to see you again.
So let's talk about the conflict in the Mideast. We're still learning more about this cause of this hospital blast. It's believed to have killed hundreds of people in Gaza. If you were president of the United States right now, how do you think you would be handling this crisis?
Well, the first thing you do is make sure that there's no daylight between America and Israel. I would say setting shoulder to shoulder and back to back with no daylight is so important. And what we saw is an atrocity that just makes your heart sick. Evil brought upon the Jewish people in Israel with Hamas's objective to eliminate Jews on earth, not just Israel, but everywhere there are 6 billion in America. We're seeing anti-Semitism continue to grow. We have a lot of work to do. One of the ways that we help is to make sure that we support Prime Minister Netanyahu's efforts in wiping Hamas off the map. I am thankful for the way that he started the process, which is to send the signal into Gaza to get out. Being very specific to give civilians an access opportunity, a way out, is something that was not afforded to people of Israel.
Also important, I think, don't you think, to send the message to the world and in the United States. Hamas is not the Palestinians, as you were clearly suggesting with the corridor, and Hamas is not Muslim Americans and Arab Americans. We saw that horrific crime in Illinois the other day.
The guy who stabbed the 6-year-old. What disgusting. That's murder. That person should be put in jail, period. No question about that. But we should not stand for hate at all. We should certainly stand with our allies. We must be loyal to our allies while being lethal to our adversaries, without any question.
One last question on this is just, what lessons do you think, what lessons have you learned as an American from 9/11 and how this country reacted to 9/11, the war on terror, war in Iraq, war in Afghanistan, that you think Israel should have learned or could learn so they don't make the same mistakes that maybe we made?
Well, listen, I think what you're going to see is a proportional response, which is eliminating Hamas as a proportional response, number one. Number two, doing it in a way that actually gathers support, gathers allies. The morality that they're going into Gaza with so far is something that I think is important for an important distinction going forward. I think you saw that with our 9/11 response as well. I'd say the third thing that you learn is the importance of having allies and having a Western alliance. One of the challenges that we see with Hamas, their objective, as I said earlier, is not just to eliminate Israel or Jews. The third part of that tranche that they're looking at is the elimination of Western democracy as we know it today. And so the lessons that you can learn from 9/11 and apply it to today are the lessons that I feel coming out of Israel, and certainly specifically out of the Prime Minister as it relates to discipline, refrain from responding immediately. He's taken a couple days. That's really important, as it sends a message throughout the world that the moral compass is intact in spite of seeing your people's beheading of your kids, burning the bodies that saw so charred. Having the discipline after the attack sends a strong message of leadership.
All right, Senator Tim Scott, good to see you. Sorry we're squeezing. It's a crazy show today because of chaos on the Hill. Please come back soon. Look forward to it. Good to see you. It's been too long.
God bless.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Coming up, I'm going to speak to a doctor on the ground in Gaza as the hospitals are overflowing and running out of the fuel and the supplies they need. Stay with us.
Wayfair has nice prices, so you can have nice things.
Kelly, we have champagne taste on a hard seltzer budget.
Wayfair's got just what you need. What? Y'all, this is nice.
Salad plate, Kelly Clarkson, I'm fancy now. I have always wanted statement lighting.
Get nice things at nice prices at Wayfair. Wayfair, you've got just what I need.
Happiness is different things to different people. That's what happiness is.
Etsy has home, style, gifts. Etsy has it.
This bakery needs new equipment fast to keep up with demand. So they're going to On Deck, the online lender that makes it easy to choose your loan and if approved, get funds as soon as the same day. Your loan is on deck.
Being in debt was just such a challenge as a working single mom.
I was working 3 jobs just to make ends meet.
I knew I wasn't going to be able to get out of debt by myself.
National Debt Relief negotiated with my creditors and reduced my debt by half.
National Debt Relief can significantly reduce the amount you owe.
National Debt Relief got me out of debt.
I feel like I'm in control again. I feel like I'm taking my life back now.
Call or visit nationaldebtrelief.com to get started.
There comes a time when you realize the kitchen you used to love is ready for a refresh. Let a Cabinets to Go design expert help you craft the look you want with quality products in today's designer styles and colors backed by a transferable lifetime warranty. Out with the old, in with the new. It's that easy. From design to install, we do it all. Plus, get 0% APR for a limited time. Visit cabinetstogo.com to schedule your free design consultation today. Cabinets to Go. Wow for less.
At drivetime.com, we've been hard at work. And we finally did.
Did you make it so I can finally see my real payments and shop at thousands of cars with no hit to my credit?
Wait. Yes!
Shop for cars online with no credit hit.
Yeah, look, there's a slidey thingy. I'm changing my own payments. I feel strong!
Go to drivetime.com, get approved, shop real cars, customize your real terms with no credit hit.
Hey, we did it, Drive Time!
Shop for cars online with no credit hit at drivetime.com.
Your record label is taking off, but so is your sound engineer. You need to hire.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Indeed Instant Match instantly delivers quality candidates matching your job description. Visit Indeed.com/hire.
Our mission here at CNN is that the news comes first. That's the promise of the Situation Room. We work as hard as we can to get the facts.
The Situation Room with Wolf Blitzer, next on CNN.
Stop! I am a good zombie!
This October,
Trick or treat!
spirits come home to rest all month long.
This place is really haunted.
What a weird mystery. With Hollow Stream on Disney+.
We're gonna scare you. Boom.
Home is where the hunt is.
It's time.
Coventry, even a term policy for cash or a combination of cash and coverage with no future premiums.
Someone needs to tell them that they're sitting on a gold mine and you have no idea. Hey guys, you're sitting on a gold mine.
Do you hear that?
I don't hear anything anymore.
Find out if you're sitting on a gold mine. Call Coventry Direct today at 800-392-7600 or visit coventrydirect.com.
I'm Pete Montine at Reagan National Airport. This is CNN.
As Israeli forces continue to battle Hamas in Gaza, one hospital has come up with a creative solution to keep patients and staff safe during war. CNN's Sarah Sider takes us now inside an underground parking lot that has been transformed into an operational hospital.
A doctor checks in on a patient. Just an ordinary day in the hospital. Except there's nothing ordinary about where this is taking place.
This is the bunker underground hospital. This is a functioning hospital. In the highest level, every service, every technology, everything that they need, we provide them. And everything is being supplied here.
It has the look and the feel of a regular hospital with all the things that you'd expect, except for when you turn the corner and you can really see this is an underground parking garage. At least it was. Vehicle parking spaces are now for patient beds, driveways for push carts. This is how Tel Aviv Sorovsky Medical Center is preparing to treat patients in wartime.
So it's as perfectly normal as usual in the most abnormal scenario. Exactly. Yeah. This is the right phrase to put it.
This is the result of 14 years of planning for war.
We planned this underground hospital 14 years ago, more or less after the Second Lebanon War. Tel Aviv was for the first time got missile attack.
That was then, before Hamas stormed across the border by land, air, and sea on Shabbat, killing, kidnapping, and maiming men, women, and children. Several floors above the hospital bunker, 60 hospital beds are now filled with victims from the Hamas attack.
I went to a party with my friends. It was a music festival, and in 6:30, something like that, alarm started.
He and his friends managed to jump in their car, but then
there was a squad of 4 terrorists just started spraying at us, shooting without conscience.
Shooting at you, just indiscriminate.
Yes, just shooting without conscience.
His car among those abandoned on the side of the road. He ran and hid for the next 5 hours, blood pouring from his arm, where a bullet smashed through his skin and bone.
There is no one in this world who wants peace more than I do. Trust me. I've been 4 years in the army, I got shot over peace. I don't want this, none of us wanted this to happen.
Do you still think that peace is possible?
Wow. I used to believe in peace all the time, but right now, after seeing what I saw, Yitzhak Rabin, who was the Prime Minister of Israel, said something very important. Yes. He said that peace you not make with friends, you make with enemies. But even enemies need to be human beings.
No matter who you are, this hospital will treat you deep below the Earth's crust. It has already moved a whole section of the hospital to get the staff and patients prepared for life below during war.
What do you think about being in a parking garage?
He's enjoying every minute of it. Does this feel different this time?
It's feel different because we know that it's not like kind of a limited operation. It's a wartime.
And our thanks to Sarah Seidner for that report. We'll be right back.
Once retired, Marcus decided, I will never again work for another man or woman. I abandoned my corporate phone plan, and I'll get a new plan with Consumer Cellular for up to half the cost.
Let's go, birds.
When freedom calls, we're here to answer.
Now, ADT professionally installs Google Nest products.
Cool. You're all set.
So your home is safe and smart. You can check in on your home.
Arm the system, we should go.
Manage your system from virtually anywhere. And get intelligent alerts like when a package has arrived. When the most trusted name in home security adds the intelligence of Google, you have a home with no worries. Brought to you by ADT.
Tired of sciatic nerve pain radiating down your leg and lower back? Get relief, finally, with MagnaLife Leg and Back Pain Relief Cream. Fast acting, and yes, it really works. So get living.
Available at your local retailer.
We've got questions about Medicare plans. Well, we've got a lot of answers. How can I help?
Well, for starters, do you have a Medicare plan I can actually afford?
How about a plan with a $0 monthly premium?
Well, that's a great start. What other benefits can we get?
Things like dental, vision, and hearing. But let me help you pick the plan that's right for you.
Ooh.
Don't wait. Call 1-888-65-Aetna to get answers to your questions and pick a plan that's right for you. And let's make healthier happen together.
Life after student debt is within reach. Refi at SoFi.com. You could save thousands and get to your goals faster. SoFi, get your money right.
JP Morgan Wealth Management knows it's easy to get lost in investment research. Get help with JP Morgan Personal Advisors.
Hey David, ready to get started?
Work with advisors who create a plan with you and help you find the right investments.
So great getting to know you. Let's take a look at your new investment plan.
Okay, great.
This should have you moving in the right direction.
Thanks, Jen.
Get ongoing advice and manage your investments in the Chase mobile app.
Camping was fun, but it looks like we brought the Blitz back with us.
If you have kids, then you really need WeatherTech. It's the ultimate way to kid-proof your vehicle. From laser-measured floor liners for the front and rear, to cargo liner, seat protector, and seat back protectors, we've got you covered.
Your turn.
Find these American-made products at WeatherTech.com.
People thinking my daughter is my sister, that never gets old. With CeraVital Advanced, I wake up refreshed.
CeraVital Advanced is an award-winning beauty supplement at Ulta. Get started today at CeraVital.com.
They line up by the thousands, each one with a story that breaks your heart. Like Rivette, every step brought her pain. Their only hope, Mercy Ships, the largest floating civilian hospital in the world, bringing free surgeries to people who have no other hope. $19 a month will help provide urgently needed surgery for so many still suffering. So don't wait. Call 877-426-8845 or donate at mercyships.org.
Just into CNN, the White House says that the summit between President Biden and several Arab leaders in Jordan has been canceled. This comes as President Biden departed on his trip to Israel just moments ago. We're going to continue to monitor this trip and the confusion and chasm playing out between Israel and Palestinians over the hospital blast that killed hundreds. If you ever miss an episode of Lead, you can listen to the show where you get your podcast. Our coverage continues now with Wolf Blitzer. He's in the Situation Room. I'll see you tomorrow.
Happening now, breaking news, a deadly explosion at a hospital in Gaza. Palestinian officials say hundreds were killed, and they're blaming Israel. But Israel denies that, saying it has intelligence indicating the hospital was hit by a failed Islamic Jihad rocket. The blast is certainly complicating President Biden's high-stakes mission to the Middle East. He's on his way to Israel to offer a wartime show of support and to personally push for desperately needed humanitarian aid in Gaza. But a key summit with Mideast leaders was just canceled. There's also breaking news in the U.S. House Speaker stalemate. Congressman Jim Jordan just set a vote for tomorrow morning on his bid to win the speakership. The GOP firebrand losing a first vote today with 20 of his fellow Republicans refusing to support him. Welcome to our viewers here in the United States and around the world. I'm Wolf Blitzer. You're in the Situation Room.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Let's get right to the breaking news in the Middle East. A deadly explosion at a hospital in Gaza. Israel and Palestinian groups are at odds over who's to blame. Clarissa Ward and Aaron Burnett are standing by for us live in Israel. MJ Lee is over at the White House as this blast threatens to become a flashpoint in the Israel-Hamas war. First, let's go to Clarissa. Clarissa, what do we know about this hospital blast?
Well, Wolf, we know that thousands of people were taking shelter in the Al-Ahli Baptist Hospital in Gaza City. Palestinian officials are saying that hundreds of people have been killed, and the scenes and the aftermath are just absolutely horrifying. Many of these people were seeking refuge. They thought that the hospital would be a safe place for them to go. You may remember that the IDF had ordered people to leave northern Gaza. We've been speaking to people on the phone for the last few days. Many didn't feel it was safe or even possible to leave. And so a lot of people go to hotels, to hospitals, to try to find a safe place. Now, there is a continued back and forth about who was responsible, how this happened. Palestinians on the ground pointing out that hundreds of people have been killed. That is not really consistent with the kind of death toll that you would see from a rocket. Also, the enormity of the blast, the damage it did, destroying that one MSF, which is Doctors Without Borders, an NGO on the ground. One doctor said that the entire ceiling of the operating room collapsed as he was performing an operation with the force of that blast. And all of this now leading to a huge groundswell of anguish and outrage, both in Gaza, the West Bank, but also across the Arab and Muslim world and beyond, and really putting a huge amount of pressure onto this visit of President Biden. As you mentioned already, King Abdullah of Jordan has basically said that there will be no summit in Amman, where Biden was expected to meet with Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas, also Egyptian leader President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, as well as King Abdullah. And a lot of questions now going forward as to what this means for humanitarian efforts, but also as to the real possibility of an escalation in violence here and across the region, Wolf.
Let me bring in Aaron Burnett into this conversation. Aaron, Israeli officials, as you well know, they are categorically denying any responsibility for the hospital explosion, but officials in Gaza directly blame Israel. What do you make of these conflicting claims?
Wolf, they are conflicting, and of course Israel is pointing to the Iron Dome actually as one reason why they should be trusted on their claims. They're saying they know where rockets come from, that's how they calculate where they're going to come in, and that they know where this rocket came from. As you said, they said it's a Palestinian Islamic Jihad, another Islamic terrorist group in Gaza, not Hamas. They said that they had detected a barrage of rockets that came from nearby this hospital and flew over this hospital just around the time that the hospital itself was struck. And they say that they weren't conducting operations at the time. So we'll see if this is able to be verified and proven. But Wolf, as Clarissa is pointing out, you're seeing demonstrations already. Immediately after this happened, we started to see crowds gather in Ramallah near the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas's home right before he canceled his appearance at that summit, which he did first, and then, of course, King Abdullah of Jordan canceled the entire thing. That reaction is immediate. So even if it is possible to come out and conclude who did or didn't do it, if Israel did not do it, if that is even possible to confirm, as you can see, and as Clarissa is saying in this region, people will believe what they want to believe, no matter what the facts actually end up being. And that is what makes this such an incredibly dangerous and tragic moment, although sadly incredibly predictable, given the back and forth that we have all been experiencing these past 10 days.
Good point. MJ, you're over at the White House for us. As you know, President Biden is getting ready to head off to the region tonight. What more can you tell us about how this latest development is impacting his plans?
Well, Wolf, the president is on his way to Israel, but the White House just minutes ago announced that the Jordan portion of his trip has been canceled altogether, and releasing a statement for the first time addressing that hospital blast. Here is a part of that statement, the White House saying, after consulting with King Abdullah of Jordan and in light of the days of mourning announced by President Abbas of the Palestinian Authority, President Biden will postpone his travel to Jordan and the planned meeting with these two leaders. And President Sisi of Egypt, the president sent his deepest condolences for the innocent lives lost in the hospital explosion in Gaza and wished a speedy recovery to the wounded. This, of course, coming after Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas pulled out of that meeting that he was supposed to participate in with President Biden and other leaders in the region. This meeting was supposed to take place in Jordan after the president had concluded his meetings in Israel. And I can tell you this is going to be a very big sort of disappointing setback for this administration. We know obviously how important that meeting with President Abbas was going to be. Any chance of there being diplomatic conversations, any diplomatic efforts would need to include him. So that is going to be a setback as far as this trip is concerned. and the fact that the president is no longer going to be meeting face-to-face with Egypt's president, President Sisi. That is a country that has been so central to all of the conversations we have been talking about in terms of the U.S. trying to secure humanitarian aid, getting into Gaza, establishment of a humanitarian corridor so that people who want to leave Gaza can leave. And I just have to stress, President Biden is somebody who advisors around him will always tell you very much believes in the power of being in the room, meeting face-to-face with these leaders. So the fact that he is no longer going to be having this meeting in person in Jordan, again, is going to be a disappointing setback. The White House has said, though, that this meeting is postponed, suggesting that they will try to have these conversations still take place. But again, it is not going to be something that we see happen tomorrow, Wolf.
MJ, has the president boarded Marine One to fly over to Joint Base Andrews and get off on Air Force One?
Yeah, and we didn't hear him taking any questions from reporters who were hoping that he would address this situation with the hospital bombing in Gaza. I will note that the fact that the White House took many hours really to even address the fact that this bombing, this strike had happened, I think really gets to the sensitivities involved. You all were talking about how there are conflicting claims right now as to who exactly is responsible. Obviously a situation that the administration is going to be incredibly careful as they wade into it. They're not going to want to make it seem as though they're taking sides, as intelligence is still being gathered about what exactly happened and who was responsible.
Clarissa, how much does this hospital bombing now compound the human suffering in Gaza as officials are still struggling with the humanitarian response?
Well, this is a massive setback, Wolf. Well over 3,000 Palestinians now killed. More than 600,000 have been forced from their homes in the northern part of Gaza to the south. The hope was, or the aim through various diplomats, was to try to get some kind of a humanitarian corridor established through that Rafah border crossing with Egypt, allowing aid in, allowing foreign nationals out. Ideally, I guess the idea was to set up some kind of a humanitarian zone, although obviously that was going to be fraught with various complications. It's already been days and days of people waiting, gathering, sitting near that Rafah border crossing, and often at great danger, despite the sort of advice of Israeli forces for people to move into the south. There have been strikes throughout the south, all throughout this morning. And so when you speak to people in the north who are still in their homes, they say, well, why would we move south when there's no evidence that it's safe? And when you speak to the Egyptians, they also say, well, why would we open the border crossing when there are still strikes so close to the border? This is going to make it even harder, Wolf, to find some kind of a consensus and get that aid to the people who need it most, Wolf.
Yeah, that's so important. Aaron, what does this mean for Israel's calculations right now as it clearly is preparing for a major ground invasion of Gaza?
Well, Wolf, at the very least, it complicates them, right? I mean, there have been clearly hope here as well that the double summits tomorrow might have had some significant effects. Maybe there wasn't a lot of hope. Certainly, they said it wouldn't have impacted their plans for an invasion itself, but that they had thought maybe it would have had some sort of positive impact on escalation. Of course, that's now off the table, at least for now. I was just speaking before joining all of you with the former head of operations for the IDF, a general, and he was saying, look, it's an incredible tragedy what happened. It's an incredible tragedy, but the reality, in his view, is that Israel will still go ahead with a ground invasion. However, that actually looks like, it may not be what people expect, but that there's no way around that. But there's no question it complicates it, because public opinion in the World Court of Public Opinion matters very deeply, Wolf, and this, no matter how it ends up, again, no matter what they're able to prove or disprove, this is a blow to Israel.
Yes, it is. Aaron Burnett, Clarissa Ward, MJ Lee, ladies, thank you very, very much. And this note, Aaron, of course, will be back right at the top of the hour for Aaron Burnett out front. She's live in Israel. Just ahead, we'll have more reaction to all the breaking news. Senator Chris Murphy, a key Democrat on the Foreign Relations Committee, is standing by to join us here in the Situation Room. Plus, we'll get an update on the chaos in the U.S. House of Representatives as 20 Republican defectors torpedo Jim Jordan's first attempt to secure the speakership. Will a second vote tomorrow morning turn out any different?
Oh.
Best thing I've ever done. That's what Freddie told me.
It was the best thing I've ever done, and yes, without a doubt.
I don't have any anxiety about money anymore.
Great people. Different people, that's for sure. And all of them had different reasons for getting a reverse mortgage. But you know what? They all felt the same about two things. They all loved their home, and they all wanted to stay in that home.
If you're 62 or older and own your home, you can access your equity to improve your lifestyle. A reverse mortgage loan eliminates your monthly mortgage payments and puts tax-free cash in your pocket. Call 800-719-5103.
Why don't you call AAG and find out what a reverse mortgage can mean for you.
Call right now to receive your free no-obligation info kit. Call 800-719-5103. 800-719-5103.
I've spent centuries evolving with the world. That's the nature of being the economy, observing investors choose assets to balance risk and reward, with one element securing portfolios time after time: gold. Agile and liquid, a proven protector. An ever-evolving enabler of bold decisions. An asset more relevant than ever before. Gold, your strategic advantage.
As someone living with type 2 diabetes, I want to keep it real and talk about some risks. With type 2 diabetes, you have up to 4 times greater risk of stroke, heart attack, or death. Even at your A1C goal, you're still at risk, which if ignored could bring you here. May put you in one of those, or even worse. Too much? That's the point. Get real about your risks and do something about it. Talk to your healthcare provider about ways to lower your risk of stroke, heart attack, or death. Learn more at getrealaboutdiabetes.com.
He hits his mark center stage and is crushed by a baby grand piano.
You're replacing me?
Customize and save with Liberty Bibbity.
He doesn't even have a mustache. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 Liberty.
Not that into saving, are you?
Whoa,
dude, money. Because you paid too much for those glasses. This time, go to America's Best, where 2 pairs and a free quality eye exam start at just $79.95. Book an exam today at americasbest.com.
Try killing bugs the worry-free way, not the other way. Zevo traps use light to attract and trap flying insects with no odor and no mess. They work continuously, so you don't have to. Zevo, people-friendly, bug-deadly.
Wayfair has nice prices, so you can have nice things.
Kelly, we have champagne taste on a hard seltzer budget.
Wayfair's got just what you need.
What?
Y'all, this is nice.
That would place Kelly Clarkson. I'm fancy now. I have always wanted statement lighting.
Get nice things at nice prices at Wayfair.
Wayfair, you've got just what I need.
Meet Milo. He's part border collie and part party animal. Meet the new Bissell Little Green Hydro Steam Pet. It's part steam-powered stain remover and part party animal patrol. Bissell, a new breed of clean.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Page Publishing. Want to publish a book? We'll review your manuscript for free.
If you've written a book, Page Publishing can help you through the process. We cut through the confusion of the publishing world to make it easy for you.
Call 800-563-0741.
We'll have much more on the breaking news from the Middle East in just a few moments, but there's also major breaking news here in Washington. Republican Congressman Jim Jordan trying to win over 20 Republican holdouts tonight after failing to secure the Speaker's gavel on the first ballot earlier today. Another vote has now been set for tomorrow at 11 a.m. Our chief congressional correspondent, Manu Raju, is tracking all of the action up on Capitol Hill. Manu, how far is Jordan saying he's willing to go, prepared to take his fight to become Speaker?
Well, he's indicating that he's ready to go for the second ballot, Wolf, tomorrow morning. The question, though, is will he go on to a third ballot? Because he does not appear to have the votes in the second ballot. As Republicans plunge
deeper into turmoil as we get into past the second week of this following the historic and unprecedented ouster of Kevin McCarthy as Speaker, and the paralysis that has ensued as Republicans have been unable to unite behind a leader. A Speaker is required to be elected to move on any legislation right now, and right now that no one can get the 217 votes needed to win the speakership. Jim Jordan losing 20 Republicans today. In today's vote, he could only afford to lose 3. So behind the scenes, he's been trying to pick off members one by one, but I am told by Republican sources that his opposition could grow among the Republican ranks, something that they are trying desperately to prevent. At the same time, Wolf, there are ongoing discussions, bipartisan discussions, about trying to empower the interim speaker, Patrick McHenry, give him more power in the legislative process. That is something that Jim Jordan is warning against as he tries to urge Republicans to fall in line.
No one in our conference wants to see any type of coalition government with Democrats. So we're going to keep working, and we're going to get to the votes.
Legislation. Are you open to McHenry specifically?
Our focus right now relates not just to any one individual, but to getting the institution reopened. I have respect for Patrick McHenry. I think he is respected on our side of the aisle. There are a whole host of other Republicans who are respected on our side of the aisle. Jim Jordan is not one of them.
And rank and file Republicans are beginning to talk about that idea of trying to figure out some way out of this crisis, whether to pass a resolution to ensure that Patrick McHenry has more power to move on legislation. That would require some support, likely from Democrats, given their significant Republican opposition. But Democrats would want something in exchange, which makes all this uncertain how this will play out. And Wolf, this all comes as so much key legislative action is waiting here in Congress, including an upcoming expected aid package to Israel, Ukraine aid, something being pushed heavily by the White House, and efforts to avoid a government shutdown by mid-November. Nothing can be acted upon until the House elects a speaker. Whether they can do that tomorrow remains a major question, and it seems unlikely at the moment. If Jim Jordan weighs his next steps, whether to keep fighting or whether to bow out and potentially to another candidate who also could struggle to get the 217 votes needed, Wolf.
As I keep saying, the stakes are clearly enormous. Manu Raju up on Capitol Hill. Thank you. I want to turn right now back to the breaking news in the Middle East. The devastating explosion at a Gaza hospital that's reportedly killed hundreds of people. The blast occurring just before President Biden had departed for Israel. Let's bring in Democratic Senator Chris Murphy. He's a key member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, thanks so much for joining us. As you know, Hamas claims Israel is responsible for the attack on that hospital. The IDF says the attack was a failed rocket launch from the Palestinian Islamic Jihad organization, an organization the U.S. regards as a terrorist organization. First, let me get your reaction to this awful tragedy. How will the U.S. try to get to the bottom of what happened?
Well, first of all, this is an awful tragedy. Anytime you have this scope of loss of civilian life, we mourn, just like we're continuing to mourn for the families of Israelis that died at the hands of Hamas. I have not been briefed on the attack on the hospital. I don't know who's responsible, but what I do know is that Hamas often embeds itself, its political leadership, its military leadership, its ammunition inside civilian populations and inside civilian buildings. It's not uncommon for Hamas to hide inside schools, inside hospitals, and so they make it very difficult on Israel to find and hold accountable the perpetrators of the crimes from a week and a half ago, but I simply have not seen any information to confirm which side was responsible here. Obviously, I'm much more prone to believe the Israelis. I don't tend to ever believe Hamas, and so I'll look forward to hearing the details.
How important, Senator, is it that Israel publicly release intelligence backing up their analysis that the IDF was not responsible for this deadly hospital blast in Gaza?
Well, I mean, listen, I don't tend to require Israel to provide proof of the claims they make. They are an ally. My default position is to believe Israel. But, of course, there are others who don't necessarily share my view. And so it is likely going to be better for Israel to provide evidence or proofs so as to try to make sure that skeptics of Israel, and they exist all around the world, will believe the case that they're making.
Are you concerned, Senator, that this deadly explosion at this hospital in Gaza makes President Biden's trip to Israel, and he's supposed to get there tomorrow, even more dangerous? Is this the right environment, do you believe, for the President of the United States to go to Israel right now?
I think it's really important for the President to be there. This is an exceptional leader, somebody that knows the Middle East, the complexities of that region, better than anybody else in the United States, perhaps better than anybody else in the world. And I think at this moment, it's really important for the United States to stand side by side with Israel. We all knew that going after Hamas and holding these terrorists accountable was going to involve civilian casualties. It is incumbent upon Israel to limit those civilian casualties, but it was Hamas's decision to enter Israel and perpetrate these horrendous attacks. It's Hamas's decision to embed itself in civilian populations in order to hide from accountability inside Gaza. And so I know that President Biden is going to have a conversation with Netanyahu about how this war will be conducted, how best to effectuate Israel's aims, and how to limit the impact on the civilians inside Gaza. But to the extent that this war ever had to happen, the blame for that lies with Hamas.
As you know, the president was scheduled after his talks with Prime Minister Netanyahu in Israel to go to Amman, Jordan, for meetings with various Arab leaders, but that has now been canceled in the wake of this deadly hospital blast in Gaza. The reaction to this attack is clearly spiraling right now across the region. Are the goals of this diplomatic mission now still achievable?
Well, the primary goal of this diplomatic mission is to show to the world that the United States stands with Israel at this important time. And, well, it may be true that right now Abbas doesn't want to stand in a public forum with Israeli or U.S. leaders. We are still engaged in hour-by-hour diplomacy in the region at the highest levels to make sure that this conflict doesn't spill over and move beyond a conflict between Israel and Hamas in Gaza. And so that diplomacy conducted by the president, by Tony Blinken, continues whether or not there's going to be an in-person meeting with the Jordanians and the Palestinians when Biden is in the region.
And the Egyptian president al-Sisi as well. Iran's supreme leader Ali Khamenei is warning that if the strikes on Gaza persist, the resistant forces, that's what he calls them, the resistance forces it supports, can't be held back from attacking Israel. How concerned are you that this war could escalate into a major regional conflict?
Well, we should not allow for Iranian threats to stop us from holding these terrorists accountable. Iran is responsible for the existence of Hamas. Hamas would not have the ability to attack Israel if it did not have a patron in Tehran. And so, of course, Iran is going to threaten action if anybody holds their proxy, Hamas, accountable. But in order to square the moral universe, in order to make sure that other terrorist organizations don't take attacks against Israel or the United States, we have to work with Israel to hold Hamas accountable, and we can't let Iran dissuade us from that.
Senator Chris Murphy, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Coming up, we'll have a closer look at the plight of civilians desperately trying to flee Gaza, even as the border crossing with Egypt remains shut.
If you have this, consider adding this. An AARP Medicare Supplement Insurance Plan from United Healthcare. Medicare Supplement plans help by paying some of what Medicare doesn't and let you see any doctor, any specialist, anywhere in the U.S. who accepts Medicare patients. So if you have this, consider adding this. Call United Healthcare today for your free decision guide.
This thing is making me get an ice bath again.
What do you mean? These straps are mind-blowing. They collect hundreds of data points like HRV and REM sleep, so you know all you need for recovery.
And you are?
I'm an investor in Invesco QQQ, a fund that gives me access to NASDAQ 100 innovations like wearable training, optimization tech.
How long you...
I'm done.
Become an agent of innovation with Invesco QQQ.
I'm okay.
Before investing, carefully read and consider fund objectives, risk, charges, expenses, and more in prospectus at Invesco.com.
Mom, are you sure you don't want to go bowling with us tonight? Yeah, no.
There's my little marzipan! Oh, my daughter gives the best hugs.
We're just passing through on our way to the Jazz Jamboree. And we wanted wanted to thank America's #1 motorcycle insurer for saving us money. Mara, your parents are
Exactly like me. I know, right?
Well, cherish your friends and loved ones.
Oh, Daddy-O!
Let's boogie woogie.
When you need to prepare for unpredictable adventures, you need WeatherTech. Laser measured floor liners, front and rear. Seat protector to save the seats.
They're all yours. They're here.
Hey, I knew you were coming, so I WeatherTech the car.
Can we get ice cream?
We can now.
Kid-proof your vehicle with American-made products at WeatherTech.com. The day you get your Clear Choice dental implants makes every day a let's dig in day, a chow down day, a take a big bite day, a perfectly delicious day, a love my new teeth day. Because your Clear Choice day is the day everything is back on the menu. A Clear Choice day changes every day. Schedule a free consultation.
The new CNN Prime Time is where the truth shines. The day's biggest stories. The night's most essential reporting. This is the new CNN Prime Time. Weeknights starting at 7 on CNN.
Struggling from shedding or thinning hair? New Nordic's award-winning hair falling supplement is clinically proven to nourish your hair with nutrients like apple extract, biotin, and millet. 1 tablet a day helps promote less shedding and fuller, healthier hair.
I've been using this for a couple weeks and it definitely works. My hair is so healthy, so thick. I'm shedding a lot less, especially when I get out of the shower.
Shop now and try Scandinavia's #1 hair supplement.
Hey, stop changing channels. I'm out here in the woods and you gotta see this. These solar gadgets from 4patriots.com are a godsend in a blackout. The Patriot Power Cell is a solar power bank that charges 3 devices at the same time. The Halo XT tactical flashlight, 9 life-saving functions to keep you safe. And the Sidekick solar generator, silent, fume-free, safe to use inside your home. Available only at 4patriots.com. Go now, that's 4patriots.com.
I'm Melanie Zanona in Washington, and this is CNN.
Back now to the breaking news on the escalating war in the Middle East and the deadly explosion at a Gaza hospital believed to have killed hundreds of people. For Palestinians trying to flee Gaza, the border with Egypt could eventually offer a way out, but with that border closed, those civilians are trapped right now. CNN's Salma Abdelaziz has our report.
This city should be the way out of the war zone, but it too is caught in the crosshairs of Israel's relentless air assault. You are looking at the aftermath of airstrikes on Rafah. Thousands have flocked here in recent days, seeking safe passage, only to find more death. My children, oh God, please find my children, this man pleads. They are under the rubble. Oh God, please pull them out. It is unclear if his children survived. Israeli bombardment has killed dozens here in recent days, according to Palestinian officials. The city, which sits on the Egyptian border, is home to Gaza's only possible humanitarian corridor, a corridor that is now inoperable and unsafe, the WHO says, because of Israeli bombardment. And at the border crossing, footage shows smoke billowing from multiple airstrikes nearby on Tuesday. Desperate families gather here for hours a day, praying authorities will allow their exit. So far, a diplomatic standoff keeping this crucial corridor shut. Cairo is reluctant to take in refugees, but says it wants to see aid allowed into the enclave. Israel's government has imposed a complete siege of Gaza after Hamas terror attacks killed some 1,400 people. It says it aims to wipe out Hamas.
We continue to operate and strike Hamas targets as
we have defined before, and we try to do that according to the law of armed conflict and, of course, to minimize civilian casualties.
Intensive efforts by the US and the UN are yet to resolve the logjam, leaving countless people, like this Michigan resident, stuck.
With the war, I can't sleep, a lot of bomb. These people live. These people here live. It's not life.
On the Egyptian side of the border, life-saving aid is piling up. And with more than 10,000 wounded Palestinians and a healthcare system on the brink, every hour counts.
That's why it's critical to get there. This is for people like pregnant women. We know that there are 84,000 pregnant women, and many of them are delivering every day. Babies don't care about bombs. They come when they come.
Gaza is in a stranglehold, rights groups say, under siege and under attack, with innocent civilians desperate to escape a growing hellscape. Salma Abdelaziz, CNN, London.
And thanks to CNN Salma Abdelaziz for that report. I want to get reaction right now from the General Secretary for the Palestinian National Initiative, Dr. Mustafa Barghouti. I should note, Dr. Barghouti, you're a medical doctor. The IDF says Islamic Jihad was behind this deadly blast at the Al Ahli hospital in Gaza, that it was a failed launch of a rocket aimed at Israel. Palestinian authorities, of course, say it was an Israeli strike on that hospital. What is your understanding, Dr. Barghouti, of what happened?
My colleagues are there, and I've been talking to them, and they are definite about what has happened. This was not a blast. This was not an explosion. This was an airstrike. It was a deliberate war crime that Israel conducted on this hospital. And Israel, by the way, repeated two different lies. The first lie was that there were Hamas people hiding in the place, and that's why they hit it. And then the second lie came immediately after, claiming that it was jihad rocket and something like that, because I think they could not deny that there was an airstrike. So the reality is that this was a war crime. This should not have happened. I do not want an Israeli or Palestinian killed, but the reality here is that Israel is conducting acts of genocide against the population of Gaza. Several airstrikes are happening every day. 70,000 Palestinians' homes have already been destroyed. Roads are destroyed. Infrastructure is destroyed. There is every chance that there will be epidemics in Gaza because of lack of drinking water, because of the destruction of sewage system. And that's a very dangerous situation, because Israel insists on conducting this collective punishment on 3.2 million people. And add to that this act of ethnic cleansing, which is also considered a war crime, by pushing people from the north and the middle to the south. If this continues, there will be thousands and thousands and thousands of people killed, Palestinians and maybe some Israelis as well. And this has to stop. So the only way out of this for President Biden is to, first of all, I demand that he condemns this attack on the hospital, because nobody should accept airstrikes on hospitals.
But what evidence, Dr. Barghouti, with all due respect, sorry for interrupting, what evidence do you have that it was Israel that deliberately bombed this hospital, as opposed to Palestinian Islamic Jihad, a group the U.S. government calls a terrorist organization, that inadvertently launched some sort of rocket that attacked this hospital?
It is totally unacceptable to continue to blame Palestinians for killing Palestinians, and to avoid accusing Israel of war crimes when they are committing war crimes. And to claim that jihad, why would jihad hit the hospital where Palestinians?
Well, supposedly they're saying it was an error.
This is so crazy.
It was a failure.
This is so crazy.
They didn't deliberately want to hit the hospital, but it hit the hospital.
No, but that's a lie. The first lie that Israel said was there was an airstrike because Hamas people were hiding in the hospital. And then they erased this statement quickly. So that shows that they were trying to find a way to escape the responsibility of a war crime they have committed. And then who attacked Rafah with another airstrike that took the lives of 60 people? And before that, who attacked Khan Yunis with another airstrike that took the lives of 60 other Palestinian civilians? It's going on. And the only way out of this is to have immediate ceasefire. I don't know why the United States, Britain and France are not supporting ceasefire. Why don't we stop this massacre? Why don't we stop this war? Why can't we have a peaceful path during in which Palestinians will not be deprived of water, electricity, and food? They think that they will eradicate Hamas. They are trying to eradicate the whole Palestinian population. And Israel cannot hide the fact, which was said by the Israeli spokesperson, that their goal is to evict all Palestinians in Gaza to Egypt. That is an act of ethnic cleansing that cannot be allowed, because if that happens, it will mean that Israel will ethnically cleanse Gaza Strip. That is unacceptable.
Before I let you go, Dr. Barghouti, was it a mistake for the Palestinian president of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas, to say he was canceling his upcoming meeting that was scheduled in Amman, Jordan, with President Biden?
I don't think he could meet with him in the light of this criminal attack. And especially because, and it's not just Palestinians, Jordanians are also canceling that summit because they say that they have no guarantee that President Biden will work for ceasefire and for stopping this ongoing onslaught. We need peace, and we need immediate stop of this war, which will lead to nothing but more victims on the side of Palestinians and Israelis. I was so touched today by a report of an interview with an Israeli woman who lost her daughter, and I think a daughter, not a son, and she said, I am so sorry for losing my daughter, but the response to that should not be vengeance. And what Israel is doing is vengeance, and that will not lead to peace, that will not lead to a solution. The only way out of this is to have immediate ceasefire, immediate supply of food, drinking water to people immediately in Gaza, and then to have exchange of prisoners so that the Israeli prisoners can come back home safe to Israel. These airstrikes of Israel have already killed 22 Israeli prisoners. Do they want to kill more? Don't Netanyahu want these prisoners to come back home safe? I don't understand the Israeli logic. It's really unacceptable, and a war crime by striking a hospital is totally unacceptable.
Dr. Mustafa Barghouti, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Just ahead, a spokesman for the Israel Defense Forces joins us live with the latest military intelligence, Israeli military intelligence on the deadly Gaza hospital blast, as the IDF denies any involvement.
When you have auto glass damage, trust SafeLight. My customer really relies on his car's advanced safety system. You're right. Can slow down? So when he got a cracked windshield, he turned to SafeLight. We're the experts at replacing glass and recalibrating your vehicle's camera so automatic emergency braking and lane departure warning work properly to get you back on the road safely. And that means a lot. Schedule now.
SafeLight Repair, SafeLight Replace.
At DriveTime.com, we've been hard at work, and we finally did it.
Did you make it so I can finally shop with thousands of cars with no hit to my credit?
Wait, yes!
Go to DriveTime.com, get approved with no credit hit.
Go to DriveTime.com, get approved, and shop your real terms with no credit hit.
I was a teacher for 30 years, and today I'm a grandmother of 9. Technology is essential to our everyday lives, and that's why I'm concerned about our foreign adversaries' influence over the internet. Our adversaries believe in censorship and control. That's not the future I want for my grandchildren or yours. Congress needs to protect our democratic values and strengthen, not weaken, American technology.
I wish for the amazing new iPhone 15 Pro.
Sean, you mean this one, the one with titanium? Switch to Verizon, you can trade in any iPhone and get the new iPhone 15 Pro on them.
It's your last chance to trade in any iPhone for a new iPhone 15 Pro on us, only on Verizon.
Try killing bugs the worry-free way, not the other way. Zevo traps use light to attract and trap flying insects with no odor and no mess. They work continuously, so you don't have to. Zevo, people-friendly, bug-deadly.
New truck?
Yeah, Schwann's Home Delivery has a new name.
Hello.
No, I think the H is silent.
Yeah.
You. What?
What?
Schwann's Home Delivery is now yellow. Order now at yellow.com.
We need a small business loan fast.
I got this.
Loan Falcon! There's a better way to get a fast small business loan. Go to OnDeck.com, and if approved, get your funds as soon as the same day. Your loan is on deck.
It's easy to think that all money managers are pretty much the same. But if Fisher investments were clearly different.
Different how? You sell high commission investment products, right?
Nope. Fisher avoids them.
Well, you must earn commissions on trades.
Never at Fisher.
Okay, then you probably sneak in some hidden and layered fees.
No, we structure our fees so we do better when our clients do better. That might be why most of our clients come from other money managers. At Fisher Investments, we're clearly different.
Sidney Crosby just continues to boost because he has a great hockey mind.
Get ball, roll the wrist, upstairs.
Detroit's a dangerous team, and they're looking to make that next step. It'll be a fun game.
Penguins Redwings tomorrow at 7 on TNT.
You know, there's this thing called age, and it sucks.
If you're over 50, imagine you could turn back the clock on your stiff, achy joints by years. Introducing InstaFlex Advanced.
It's restored my joints without just temporarily masking my symptoms and without scary side effects. When you can find a product that can take that away to the point that you can live your life again, that is a miracle to me.
Get a complimentary sample just like texting love to 321321. InstaFlex Advanced targets the root cause of joint soreness and stiffness with a unique combination of 5 key natural ingredients. Key ingredients backed by 5 clinical studies.
I love this product. I'm telling you it works.
InstaFlex Advanced is the #1 selling joint brand at GNC, but you can only get your complimentary sample by texting love to 321321. Plus, text now, and we'll include a tube of InstaFlex pain cream for fast-acting relief absolutely free. Text LOVE to 321321 today.
I'm Paula Reed, and this is CNN.
There's a lot of anger in the Arab world tonight after a deadly explosion at a Gaza hospital. It killed hundreds of Palestinians amid disputing accounts of who's to blame. Let's go to CNN senior international correspondent Ben Wiedemann. He's joining us from southern Lebanon. Once again, Ben, what is the response there where you are in Lebanon, and indeed across the Middle East tonight?
Well, this incident has set off a firestorm of protest and anger across the Arab world. In Beirut, we understand that hundreds, perhaps thousands of protesters have gathered in the square at the bottom of the hill that leads up to the U.S. Embassy north of Beirut in a town called Aukar. There, the protesters are trying to break through barriers set up by the Lebanese police, who are firing at the protesters with tear gas. In addition, in Beirut, Hezbollah has called for a massive demonstration in the capital to condemn what they say was the Israeli attack on that hospital in Gaza. In Ramallah, on the West Bank, there are protests there against Israel, but also against Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority. In Ramallah, in the main square, there have been clashes with Palestinian security forces, and people are chanting for the downfall of Mahmoud Abbas. In Amman, the Jordanian capital, protesters gathered outside the Israeli embassy. Fires were set around the embassy. Some of the protesters tried to break inside. Jordanian security forces stopped them from doing that. In Turkey, there have been protests outside the Israeli consulate in Istanbul. Some of the protesters are firing fireworks at the embassy there. The Turkish police, we understand, are trying to keep them back. But there are also protests in Rabat, in Morocco, and other capitals around the Arab world.
Oof. Ben Wiedemann on the scene for us in southern Lebanon. Ben, stay safe. Thank you. Let's go to Tel Aviv right now, where we're joined by a spokesman for the Israel Defense Forces, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus. So, Lieutenant Colonel, thanks for joining us once again, especially on this very important day with all the breaking news. As far as this deadly Gaza hospital blast, you and other spokespeople for the IDF categorically denied that Israel was behind this blast at the Gaza hospital. You say it was a Palestinian Islamic Jihad rocket that failed and exploded. I understand the IDF says it has additional evidence to support this. What is the evidence and what does it show?
Yes, Wolf, exactly, succinctly said by you, and we have just released for the international media a video footage from a UAV, and we are going to release additional intelligence, basically a conversation that was intercepted between various terrorists where they themselves, unknowing of the fact that we were listening, confirm that they understand that it was a rocket that misfired. And as the time goes by, what we've done, and it took us some time because we wanted to be sure of the information before we say anything, we went through our own systems and first confirmed that we did not fire at that location and that there was no our misfire. Then we checked what it could have been. And we collected intelligence from various sources, from all of our systems. We listened to what the enemy was saying, and we checked the fire control system and saw that indeed there was a barrage of rockets that was fired by the Islamic Jihad towards northern or central Israel, and at least one of them misfired, which is a common phenomena when it comes to their rockets. It misfired and then landed on the ground and exploded. There are still question marks as to what exactly happened to verify the alleged amount of casualties. Questionable, and we are looking into it with our sensors to understand if the amount claimed by Hamas is indeed the amount or if those numbers have been inflated. And we are cross-checking and referencing if there was any staging of an event, but the bottom line is that we have confirmed, and all of our chain of command stands behind it, that this was not an IDF strike. It was a misfired rocket by the Islamic Jihad that landed and most probably caused that explosion.
Lieutenant Colonel, when will you release this new evidence that you say you have pointing to Islamic Jihad?
So we released the UAV footage. It's already out, and I'm sure that the desk will receive it soon and be able to analyze it. And in the coming, I'm sure, minutes, perhaps less than an hour, there will be the recording of the conversation, which is also evidence that at least the other side knew, Hamas and others knew, that this was a misfire.
Who was this intercepted phone conversation with? Who were on both ends of this conversation that supposedly pointed to Islamic Jihad?
To the best of my knowledge now, I haven't heard the conversation yet. I've been told about it. It's between Hamas terrorists. There might be a conversation also of Islamic Jihad terrorists, but it will be in Arabic by Palestinian terrorists, where they tell between themselves that they understand that there was a misfire.
Will President Biden be able to review all of the Israeli evidence that you say you have? Will he get a full briefing and other top U.S. officials when everyone meets, when the President of the United States meets with the Israeli leadership tomorrow?
That and more, and U.S. military officials are already aware of the intelligence. They already know that it was the Islamic Jihad, so I've learned. And we are, of course, as always, coordinated with the U.S. We share intelligence, and of course, when President Biden lands, that will be displayed so that he himself can be convinced that this was not done by Israel. It happened by an Islamic Jihad rocket misfiring, and then all of the events that have unfolded since should be perhaps reviewed with a totally different perspective.
Can you definitively state, Lieutenant Colonel, that there were no Israeli military operations in the area of this hospital around the time of this blast?
We have looked into our activity, and there was no strike on that hospital or in the immediate vicinity. Of course, northern Gaza Strip, Gaza City, that is the area where we have said before it is going to be an area of significant military operations. So there was military activity ongoing, but factually, not circumstantially, factually, this was an Islamic Jihad rocket. And I've also been asked if it may have been an interception by the Iron Dome that caused the rocket to explode and land. That has also been categorically denied. That is not the case, and we do not intercept rockets over Gaza.
Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
I want to bring in CNN's Jeremy Diamond. He's joining us from Jerusalem right now. Jeremy, you just heard the IDF spokesperson talk about the intelligence that they say they plan to show not only President Biden and the top U.S. military leadership, but the rest of the world as well. Why is this so important for President Biden's trip to Israel right now?
Well, first, Wolf, I think it's really important to understand why the IDF is doing this kind of full court press, trying to show every piece of evidence that they are gathering to indicate on, as far as they are concerned, that they were not responsible for the strike. On the one hand, of course, they want to disprove the narrative that has been spreading about their responsibility for this attack, but on the other hand, it is also clearly being more urgent because of the fact that President Biden is set to land here in Israel in a matter of hours now, really. This visit by President Biden is intended to be a strong show of solidarity by the United States with Israel in its campaign against Hamas. President Biden and Netanyahu standing shoulder to shoulder at this moment ahead of an expected Israeli ground operation inside of Gaza. And so obviously this is the last thing that they want, is to have a sense that the Israeli military is responsible for a strike on a hospital in Gaza. Regardless, though, of the evidence, this has already scuttled parts of President Biden's trip. He's not going to Jordan. But Wolf, I do also want to talk to you about a very important conversation I had today with Yossi Landau, who is a 30-year veteran of this Zaka search and rescue group. I spoke with him today. He has been in conflict zones, visited the aftermath of terrorist attacks for the last several decades, but he said that he has never seen anything like these terrorist attacks that were perpetrated by Hamas 2 Saturdays ago. I need to warn our viewers that the content, the testimony you're about to hear is very graphic, and also note that CNN has not independently verified all of his testimony, though we do have evidence of similar atrocities carried out by Hamas.
10 days after Hamas carried out its attack in southern Israel, Yossi Landau is still discovering fresh horrors from that day.
When we were going to clean up, to pick up the terrorists, it was like all of the houses in the back were the field over there. And there was one terrorist body over there. And we went, and just right next to him was a body of this 14, 15-year-old. A head chopped off. We were looking around for the head. Couldn't find it.
Landau is a 30-year veteran of Zaka, a search and rescue group that specializes in recovering the victims of mass casualty events. But he has never seen anything like the horrors of October 7th.
On your way to Kibbutz Be'eri, you came across a shelter. You found 20 people inside, and they were burned alive.
I first came into that place. I saw they were hugging. They were trying to escape and to defend themselves.
When people are burned alive like that,
they suffer. They suffer till they burn, they suffer.
For hours, Landau and his team of 30 volunteers worked painstakingly to pry friends, relatives, and perhaps even lovers from each other's arms.
We have to take out each and every one and to take them apart while they were burned. Only this took us about 4 to 5 hours.
At Kibbutz Be'eri, Landau and his team found a family of 4 around a dining room table. On one side, the parents. On the other, a boy and a girl, about 6 or 7, all with their hands tied behind their backs.
You said that the bodies that day, they spoke to you. They told you stories. When you got to Kibbutz Be'eri, what was the story that you found in that first house?
The terrorists were having a ball, eating the food that was on the over there, that was prepared for the holiday.
Landau said all 4 had a bullet hole in the back of their heads and signs of torture.
And I saw the father. It was fresh. It wasn't something that he was suffering to be missing an eye. He was missing an eye. This happened next to the children. The children screaming. I'm sure.
In another house, Landau found a pregnant woman, shot from behind and stabbed in her stomach.
A knife stabbed in the baby, and the mother is lying on the stomach, big pile of blood, and shot in the back. Same thing came up. Question. Who was first? And we had a debate. Are we going to use 2 bags or 1 bag? We decided we're going to use 1 bag. We are not the evil people to separate the infant from the mother. No, we're not going to do it.
Our thanks to CNN's Jeremy Diamond for that report. We're learning new details about the landlord charged in that deadly attack against a young Palestinian American boy and his mother in Illinois. CNN's Brian Todd has the story.
The suspect in the stabbing death of 6-year-old Palestinian American boy Wadia al-Fayumi in the Chicago area was smoldering with hatred toward Muslims, according to new court documents. They cite Wadia's mother telling authorities that just moments before the attack, Joseph Zuba approached her and said he was, quote, angry at her for what was going on in Jerusalem. The documents cite the suspect's wife as saying he, quote, listens to conservative talk radio on a regular basis and had been getting increasingly upset at events in the Middle East. Wadia's incredulous, heartbroken family addressed the hatred.
We are not animals. We are the humans. We want people to see us as humans.
This comes as the FBI says it has seen an increase in threats inside the U.S. since the start of the Israel-Hamas war, threats targeting Jewish and Muslim citizens and institutions.
The emotional reaction to what is going on in Israel and Gaza is very, very strong. This is not just a news story for a lot of people. This is a story that they feel very strongly about emotionally.
Today, a sober warning from the Homeland Security Secretary.
We remain very concerned about the lone wolf, the individual incited to violence by an ideology of hate.
The FBI has just arrested this man, Jeffrey Hobgood of North Carolina, for sending threatening emails to a Jewish center in the Charlotte area. According to the FBI's criminal complaint, Hobgood said in the emails, quote, I am going to take every one of you out, using expletives, saying, we are at war, and your citizens started it. Guess who's going to finish it? This man, Carl Mintz, was arrested in recent days and charged with making threats of violence on social media against Palestinian Americans in Dearborn, Michigan, which has one of the largest Arab American communities in the U.S.
We know that dehumanization has a linkage to violence. It starts off with dehumanizing a group of people, then this otherizes them, and then it opens them up to a mob-like mentality of people to target.
Inside the U.S., experts say the threat from lone wolves to commit anti-Semitic and anti-Muslim violence is a threat that is notoriously tough to track.
The lone actors are very hard to detect, and they're also pretty hard to dissuade because typically they're acting by themselves. They're not part of a group that can be penetrated by law enforcement.
Analyst Peter Bergen told us one of his biggest concerns is not only that this war could be drawn out for months, but that more and more disturbing images will continue to be viewed on social media and elsewhere, Wolf, and that could ramp up the threats.
Yeah, certainly could. All right, Brian Todd, thanks for that report. And to our viewers, thanks very much for watching. Aaron Burnett out front, live from Israel, starts right now.
Out front next, live from Israel, President Biden now on his way here, stepping into a tinderbox, growing more volatile by the hour. Hundreds feared dead after an explosion at a hospital in Gaza, and protests already immediately overnight here tonight, spilling out into the street across the region, plus dispatches from Gaza. The brave CNN journalist sending his daily updates to us. Well, he and his family have fled northern Gaza and are now desperate for clean water. You'll see that at Hamas's arsenal. I'm going to show you firsthand the massive amount of weapons that Hamas used to pull off the deadly attack in Israel. You'll see for yourself. Let's go out front. And good evening. Welcome to a special edition of Out Front. I'm Aaron Burnett, live from Tel Aviv tonight, and we begin with the breaking news. President Biden right now is in the air on his way to Israel, and his entire trip is now in flux. A high-stakes, crucial meeting with Arab leaders canceled. The reason is this horrific scene. The situation here in the Middle East at a possible dangerous tipping point after hundreds of people were killed in a strike on a hospital in Gaza. Now, those numbers are according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. And no matter what the true toll is, this is a horrific loss of human life. The hospital was being used to shelter thousands of families who had been fleeing from the north to the south of Gaza. And already, 11, 12 p.m., a.m., 1 a.m., 2 a.m. now, protests across the region. This was the scene in the West Bank where police were forced to use tear gas to try and contain the protests that were breaking out there, the crowds. And our Ben Wiedemann reporting just now that hundreds of protesters are in Beirut. This is at 1:30 a.m. They hear about this happening an hour or two before and gather in the streets there in a square that leads towards the U.S. Embassy. Ben reports that they've been trying to break through security gates. A canceled summit, protests, blame being cast, no matter what the facts turn out to be. And at this hour, it is still unclear who is responsible for that explosion at the hospital. The Palestinian Foreign Ministry points the finger at Israel, calling it a, quote, cold-blooded massacre. But Israel categorically denies it's responsible tonight, putting out a video they say shows it was a failed rocket launch by another terror group, not Hamas, one called the group Palestinian Islamic Jihad. IDF, in fact, says 450 rockets by this particular group at Israel have actually landed within the Gaza Strip since this war began 10 days ago. What we do know is that hundreds of innocent lives were lost. And we have new images coming in right now from that strike's aftermath. These are graphic. They are horrible. There's a disgusting loss of human life, bloody bodies, people who were seeking refuge. Some do appear to be children. It would make sense. This was a place families sought refuge as they were moving to the south of Gaza. And this attack adding to the humanitarian crisis that has engulfed the Gaza Strip. Food, fuel, water dwindling fast. You'll hear from our producer Ibrahim in just a moment about that. Doctors inside the 25-mile-long strip tell CNN that they're having to operate now, do operations without painkillers because they simply do not have them. Now remember, this latest violence comes after Hamas fighters stormed Israel's border 2 Saturdays ago. 2 Saturdays ago already since this all began, slaughtering 1,400 people and taking 200 people hostage. I went to an Israeli base to see what they found, what Hamas weapons soldiers found from that attack. It was anti-tank mines, grenades, shoulder-fired rockets, and so much more. And it just seems like it's everywhere.
It's just everywhere. It's like an horror movie. You can go around the Gaza Strip, our villages, looks like the battlefield. You can see grenades and rockets all over the place.
We're going to have much more of what we saw at that base in Tuesday morning with the developments tonight. Sarah Seidner is here with me in Tel Aviv. Nick Robertson is live along the Israel-Gaza border. And Matthew Chance is in northern Israel tonight along that Lebanon border. I want to begin here with Sarah Seidner. And Sarah, as just a proof of how delicate the situation is, how on edge a hospital is hit, and this entire region immediately erupted in protests.
Yeah, and of course it did, because if this is deliberate, it's a war crime. And if it is an accident, it is the worst tragedy that we have seen so far in Gaza. Of all the things that have happened, of the hundreds of people that have already been killed, a hospital is to all people everywhere a sacred place, a place where you're supposed to be healed, and to be in that hospital and end up losing your life because of a strike is something that is for most people unfathomable, although we see it in war all the time, unfortunately. There is something people refer to as the fog of war. Immediately, the response from Hamas, who is governing Gaza, blamed Israeli airstrikes, and almost immediately after that, Israel said, look, this is not us. This is actually not the Hamas fighters, the Al-Aqsa Brigade, but indeed the Islamic Jihad fighters who are linked and backed by Hezbollah, which is backed by Iran. Generally speaking, and some folks in Syria have backed Islamic Jihad. I've spent some time with them. years ago, and they feel the same way as Hamas. They do not think that Israel should exist. They think that this should be an Islamic State, and they do not follow the Oslo Peace Accord and don't want to see them come to fruition. So at this point in time, they are being blamed by Israel. Israel says, look, we have video proof. At one point, they tweeted out this video, but then the IDF took it down. An ambassador tweeted the video, and then they took it down. But Israel, we're hearing from now, the IDF saying, we have proof. You'll have that in your inbox very shortly. We will wait for that. But in the meantime, it doesn't matter right now to the families who did this. It matters that their loved ones have been killed at a hospital, which, by the way, the Palestinians are saying was also being used as a center for evacuees because it's in Gaza. People were trying to get to safety. So they went to the hospital to find safety, and here this horrible thing happens. It is blown to pieces.
It is just horrible, and whatever facts come out, of course, many will believe what they believe. But of course, Sarah, you have spent so much time in Gaza. Sarah has spent an extraordinary amount of time there over the years. I want to go to Nick Robertson in Sderot, which is, of course, near the Gaza border. And Nick, I know a house right next door to you was struck today in these ongoing rocket attacks. What happened?
Yeah, there are still rocket attacks coming in on Sderot coming from Gaza. There were a number in the afternoon. The salvo we're talking about here came in just after dusk, I think it was. There were two impacts further away, and then that impact that was very, very loud, and we realized that it was quite close to our location. Now, we went to see the house, the destruction. You can see that the rocket had punched all the way through one wall, out through another wall. The tail fin of the rocket was sort of lying outside in a hallway. You could see the windows, the doors were blown open. Huge destruction inside of this house. Fortunately, no one in the house at that time. You just heard that explosion there. That was an airstrike. I think in Gaza, I hear the fighter jet flying away. We've been hearing a few of those airstrikes in the last couple of minutes. But what we're beginning to see is that the rockets that are coming from Gaza are able to land here in Sderot. Now, most of the civilian population has left. There's only about 4,000 people left here out of an original 40,000. So a lot of people have gone, but there are still people here in danger, and those rockets are really a reminder for them that they are effectively almost on the front line of this war.
Well, they are, and you are, Nick, and of course I know the story is not about the reporters, but you are there taking incredible risk, and that is so close, and it gives people a sense of just the randomness and the possibility of the loss of human life. So Nick Robertson, thank you very much. We're so glad that you are safe tonight. And a retired Israeli general, amid the growing tensions here, who was the head of operations for the IDF. I had a chance to speak to him. He says the blast at the hospital doesn't slow anything down when it comes to Israel's war planning, that it will not affect that. I first spoke to General Israel Ziv last week when we told you about his incredible story. He directly took on Hamas terrorists during the surprise attacks, armed only with a pistol, the one that you see him showing me right there in this video. Well, just moments ago, I asked him about the explosion at that Gaza hospital that reportedly has left hundreds dead.
What I've just heard 2 minutes ago, that after a very clear and very deep check, the IDF spokesman said that it was a failure of a jihad rocket that was aimed to go to Israel and failed and blown in that hospital. It's not the first time that it happens to them. Maybe it's first time in a hospital. But as you know, we have on our radar every launch of every rocket, so we can check it. It's not something that we cannot rely on, or a system that we need to guess. It's a clear one that we didn't shot at that target, so we know that. But it's showing us again that both the Hamas and the Jihad, they don't care about their own civilians. And for them, it was an opportunity to blame Israel, which now is proved as a fake news, of course. It's not going to stop Israel operation or war plan ahead.
General Z, the IDF's intelligence chief today made a significant statement, and now acknowledging that the Hamas attack and the hours and hours, of course, that it went on was a, quote, intelligence failure. The head of Shin Bet, the domestic security service here in Israel, took responsibility himself for the failure. He said the responsibility is on me. Is that enough?
Look, I know Ronen very well, and I know the Shabak. They are extremely serious people, very professional, and courageous people. And standing up and saying what he said, it's not simple, but the failure is a failure. There's no way to excuse that. It's absolutely failure. We'll have to investigate it.
And on the war, obviously we are now 10 days into this war, and there still has not been a mass ground invasion into Gaza. I was very interested today, General, earlier this morning, an IDF spokesperson said today that, quote, everybody's talking about the ground offensive. It might be something different. Now, it sounds as if the IDF may be opening itself to alternatives. Do you see it that way? And do you think that there is a way for Israel to resolve this, to eliminate Hamas, which has been stated as the goal, the end goal, to do that without a mass ground invasion of Gaza?
The simple answer is no. With a little bit more explanatory, first of all, we should not be in a hurry. We need to take the time. We don't have all the time maybe in the world, but we don't need to make any fast decision and act like this ground maneuverability. What we are earning now is the preparing the ground. We are hitting more and more relevant targets. We still have the issue with the kidnapped people that we want to be more clear where they are, and to prepare better the forces to getting in. It will not be anything like we have done in the past. First of all, we are not going to maneuver between streets or urban area. We intend to demolish most of the areas, of course, after evacuating the population. We are not intending to go into Hamas traps because he was preparing the ground for us, so we are not going to play to his hand. And we have our way with a lot of fire, to do the job of demolish and erase every remnants of infrastructure of the Hamas. That's the goal.
All right, General Z, thank you very much. I appreciate your time tonight, sir.
Thank you, Evan.
Out front now, Seth Jones. He served as an advisor to the commanding general of U.S. Special Operation Forces in Afghanistan. Chuck Farrer is also with me, former SEAL Team 6 squadron leader who handled hostage rescues around the world. Thank you both very much. Seth, I just want to emphasize to people here, to give the exact time, I'm looking 2:15 a.m. here in Israel and in much of the region, even 3:15 a.m. in some places, and we are seeing protests. Ever since this hospital was struck, the protests started to gather. They started in Ramallah and the West Bank. In Beirut, our Ben Wiedemann reports that there are masses of crowds gathering near the and trying to break through security fences in a square that would lead towards the U.S. Embassy. What do you think all of this adds up to, Seth, in the context that the President of the United States is now on a plane coming over here, supposedly to meet with Israelis and Arab leaders, all of whom have dropped the summit? The Arab summit's over because of what's happening now at the hospital and on these streets.
Well, Aaron, I think there are a couple of things that this says. One is
the environment that the operations are happening is an urban environment. There will be these kinds of civilian casualties. All one has to do is look at the operations in Mosul in Iraq, or Fallujah, or Grozny, or even recently in some of the Ukrainian villages where we've seen it. So there's likely to be this. But second, overseeing all of that, we have significant tension between among a range of Arab populations as well. So we've got the prospects of potential spillover in Lebanon and Syria. We've seen demonstrations in Iraq. So this is more than just an urban combat operation in Gaza. There's a lot of animosity that we're seeing. And I just spoke recently to senior U.S. FBI counterterrorism officials in the U.S. who are concerned about the second and third order impacts in U.S. cities as well.
And Chuck, we are now seeing these protests, and we're cycling through some of the videos that we have, because again, this strike on the hospital happened very late in the evening, right? When you might think people were in bed, people went out into the streets in Ramallah, and also in Amman, Jordan, which of course is where the President of the United States was going to go tomorrow afternoon after visiting Israel for that summit with King Abdullah, as well as the leaders of the Palestinians and Egypt. How much does this complicate things, and how does this tamp down at all?
First reporting is generally what, even if a later proves otherwise. And I think that this may be the case. I've had a chance to look at the available video hospitals. I can say that the explosion is not consistent with a JDAM or a JDAM-E. JDAM having a 2,000-pound explosive, JDAM-ER 250 pounds. The characteristics of the explosion they weren't that big. There was also a secondary burn just after the explosion. We had on the pod firing missiles over the hospital. What I'm comfortable with saying right now is I do not think this was a precision strike munition that hit the hospital. Nevertheless, that's what's sticking now.
Yes, but just to be clear, it is what's sticking now, and as you point out, the facts later may not matter, but when you say it was not precision, is that the same as saying you do not believe it was the IDF?
I am not willing to say it was the IDF at this point. And again, I'm basing that on the characteristics of the explosion. And also, if you have a precision strike weapon, why would you hit a hospital while the President of the United States was in the air under a meeting? Those are the things that don't add up.
And that it, right, it doesn't, and there would be no reason, there would be no fathomable reason why anybody would do such a thing. Seth, you just heard General Ziv there, General Ziv, former operations commander for the IDF, and he said that this hospital explosion is not going to affect the timing or the speed of the Israeli plans of what's coming next, whatever that may entail. He believes it does entail a ground invasion of some sort. He's very clear. He also says there's no rush to do it. What do you read into that?
Yeah, I think that's generally true. I think the Israelis have to be careful about the planning of this operation. This is a difficult operation, as he noted. But I do think it's important to look at some of the Israeli operations, including in Gaza over the last several years, Operation Protective Edge or Operation Cast Lead. These are all operations that were nowhere near as large as what the Israelis are planning right now. But they all, in these ones, involve some type of boots on the ground. What we don't know right now is whether the Israelis are going to focus mostly on special operations type forces. How long are they going to focus mostly on northern parts of Gaza? But they have to go on the ground if they're going to do what their military objective, which is what they've said, is to destroy Hamas. You cannot do that from the air.
All right, thank you very much. Chuck, Seth, I appreciate your time tonight. And our breaking news continues with these developments tonight. We are monitoring those protests, which have broken out across the Middle East after the explosion at the hospital in Gaza. Next, we are going to go live to southern Lebanon. where we are seeing some of those. Plus, we're going to go to an Israeli military base where we have access to the massive amounts of Hamas weapons that were seized by Israeli forces after the deadly attack.
This is also based on an RPG-29 warhead. We found those attached to our private vehicles inside our vehicles.
Like people's cars?
Yeah, people's cars.
And Hamas is banned from most social media platforms, but there is one where its presence is well known and established, and its popularity is surging. Now almost 700,000 followers. This is an Outfront special report ahead.
I brought in Ensure Max Protein with 30 grams of protein. Those who tried me felt more energy in just 2 weeks. Here, I'll take that.
Ensure Max Protein. 30 grams protein, 1 gram sugar, 25 vitamins and minerals, and nutrients for immune health.
Nope.
Constant Contact delivers the marketing tools your small business needs to keep up, excel, and grow. Constant Contact, helping the small stand tall.
Hey, guy! Let's do it!
Protect your truck with laser-measured WeatherTech floor liners in the front.
It's perfect.
And rear. Under-seat storage system. No-drill mud flaps. The tech liner to protect the bed and tailgate. Bump stem to guard the rear bumper. And the cup phone to secure your phone.
Yes! Guys?
Order your American-made products at WeatherTech.com.
Pano AI chooses T-Mobile for Business for 5G solutions because T-Mobile helps Pano AI innovate so they can stop the spread of wildfires. Now's the time to see what America's largest 5G network can do for your business.
The first time you made a sale online with GoDaddy was also the first time you heard of a town named Dinosaur, Colorado.
Just got an order from Dinosaur, Colorado.
Start an easy-to-build, powerful website for free with a partner that always puts you first. Start for free at GoDaddy.com.
When the world of business is constantly changing, you need to stay ahead. So what about AI to generate new possibilities? Machine learning to predict what customers will like. Or expand your business by forecasting delivery routes with real-time data. With the most experience in the cloud, imagine how AWS can transform your business.
Can we get real clear about life with psoriasis?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Is your treatment leaving you with uncontrolled symptoms? Like the cover-it-ups and brush-it-offs?
Enough with good enough.
Don't stay hiding or hurting. When your lotions and creams don't do enough to help treat the inflammation beneath the skin causing plaques and pain, it's time to get real about psoriasis so your dermatologist can help you get clear. Make the appointment and ask about Real Clear Skin.
This is a Bombas Performance Sock. For such a small item, it performs big in so many ways. Big on comfort, big on durability, big on breathability. Bombas gives you big comfort for all your athletic pursuits.
Welcome to Stormy Heights, where the windows are always Pella, because the weather is always changing. Pella's fiberglass is the strongest material for windows and patio doors. They're tested from -40 degrees Fahrenheit up to 160. The fiberglass frame is even scratch and dent resistant. Pella Windows.
Save on replacement windows by Pella now.
We're back with the breaking news tonight, live from Tel Aviv. There are widespread protests breaking out across the Middle East right now after that deadly hospital blast in Gaza. We understand that hundreds are dead. We do not yet have a death toll. This is what it looks like in Baghdad tonight. Baghdad, Iraq, a massive crowd. They are chanting anti-Israel slogans. And in Jordan, where security forces had to push hundreds of protesters away from the Israeli embassy. Jordan, of course, is where President Biden was going to go for a summit, canceled because of this strike. In Lebanon, hundreds of protesters outside the U.S. Embassy north of Beirut. And that is where Ben Wiedemann is out front. He is live from southern Lebanon. And Ben, you're seeing what's going on in Beirut right now. What is happening?
Well, shortly after the strike happened, or the incident happened at the hospital in Gaza, hundreds of people started to head in the direction of the American embassy, which is north of Beirut, and they gathered in a square at the bottom of the hill that leads to the American embassy, which is quite a ways up the hill, but the Lebanese security forces set up barriers, as they often do when there are protests there, so the crowd is being kept at the bottom of the hill, but they are trying to break through this barrier. The Lebanese security forces are trying to keep them back. They're firing tear gas at them, and this is ongoing. At the same time, Hezbollah has called for a massive protest in Beirut tomorrow against what they say was an Israeli strike on the hospital in Gaza. In Ramallah, we're seeing scenes of protest as well, and clashes with Palestinian security forces. People are obviously angry about what has happened and is happening in Gaza, but they're also angry at the Palestinian president, Mahmoud Abbas, who many consider ineffectual, passive during the current war in Gaza, and somebody who's essentially a collaborator with Israelis. They are calling for his downfall. It's important to keep in mind just how fragile some of these Arab regimes are, and when you have a shock like what is going on in Gaza, many of these regimes feel shaken as well. Aaron?
All right, Ben Wiedemann, thank you very much. And as Ben said, those crowds in Ramallah were gathering outside the residence of Mahmoud Abbas. He was the first to pull out of the summit that President Biden was going to go to in Amman, and that was then followed, of course, by King Abdullah and President al-Sisi. These widespread protests are underway. President Biden is literally in the air, on his way here, walking right into the middle of an extremely volatile situation. Kayla Tausche is out front. She is live tonight from the White House. And Kayla, what are you hearing about concerns for the president during this trip, especially given that while they would try to anticipate everything, they did not know that they would be dealing with widespread protests around the region because of a hospital strike and a summit that got called off as a result?
Well, there are always risks, Aaron, which is one of the reasons why information around presidential travel to war zones, be it Ukraine or Israel, is always very tightly guarded. But they are calculated risks, and members of the president's team made a decision last night that it was worth that calculated risk for him to travel to the region in a show of personal support for that personal diplomatic touch that for the president is so important. And they made that decision knowing that something like this was a risk. Of course, the president making a decision late this afternoon, huddling with his national security team, his Secretary of State, as they tried to assess information about that hospital blast. I'm told from my sources that there has been no internal assessment about who is responsible for that, and that it's simply impossible to know. One person telling me that there's simply fog of war, and that they have to go on with this trip because it is so important for the president on several levels to show his support for Israel and for Israeli officials, to assess on the ground exactly what the country needs before the U.S. makes a supplemental request, and to keep a second front from opening up in this war, Aaron, which is so incredibly important for stability in the region. And finally, to figure out any information they can about Americans who are trying to leave Gaza or Americans who are currently being held hostage by Hamas. John Kirby, the NSC spokesman, said earlier today that that was going to be one of the administration's key priorities as well.
All right, Kayla, thank you very much. And when you talk about those hostages, as President Biden heads here, there are Americans whose relatives are being held hostage by Hamas right now in Gaza. To think about what this strike means for them. They're awaiting any word on their loved ones. And out front now is Ben Ra'anan, whose 17-year-old sister, Natalie, along with his stepmother, Judith, were taken hostage while they were visiting family in Israel. They're from Chicago. Natalie and Judith, of course, are both American citizens. And Ben, I'm very sorry to be speaking with you and under such circumstances. I do know your sister was here to celebrate. It was her recent graduation from high school. It was a grandmother's birthday. That's when the kibbutz Nahal Oz, where they were, came under attack around 6 a.m. 2 Saturdays ago. Do you have any new information tonight about where they are?
Good evening, thank you. Currently, we don't have any new information. It has been confirmed through both the Israeli government as well as the United States government that Natalie and Judith were taken from the guest house at Nahal Oz under gunpoint and transported somewhere, but as of yet we've received no actual idea of where they are as well as their condition.
I know that's got to be hard every day. You're just wondering and hoping and praying and perhaps swinging between hope and despair, Ben. But I know the one thing you do have is that you know they were taken, and you know that Natalie texted your dad during the attack, said she was hearing explosions and gunfire, but you know she was engaging with him at that time, that she locked herself inside that house. What more do you know about what actually happened that morning to them?
Unfortunately, that's all we know. We received a text from Natalie, my sister, who I'm very pleased to say has the most amazing of heads on her, and she communicated with my father in Hebrew that she was okay for the moment. She was locking herself in the guest house, I believe, with my stepmother Judith. They were hearing guns, they were hearing explosions, and they were going to try and remain as quiet as possible. From there, once the Israeli army was able to take back the city, there was broken glass on the inside of the guest house, and both Natalie and Judith were missing at that point.
So you've shared a picture with us of your sister 10 years ago, from the day she moved back to the United States from Israel. She had lived for some time there when she was a young child. And I know her birthday. I believe it's her 18th birthday is about a week from today. We can just hope against hope that you will be back with her at that time, that this is not prolonged, but of course we have no idea. Can you just tell us a little bit more about your sister? Maybe something she, you would want her to hear, either now or one day later when you are reunited, as we pray you will be, to know you told her.
Yeah, my sister is 17 years old. She just graduated from a suburb of Chicago high school. The current conversation within our family was, what's the future going to hold? She knew she wanted to do something in art, whether that was fashion design or interior design or tattoo artistry. And I think the real key thing is, she's lived in America for a long, long time now. She's not a political person. She's not a soldier or a politician. The thing she cares about more than anything are her nails done. I'm always telling her she has these ridiculous 9-inch nails, and I keep telling her, like, that's a band. That's not actually you don't actually have 9-inch nails. And she's addicted to her phone, and she's just a normal teen. And in this moment, all we can do is pray and we can hope. And I guess my message to her is we're all here for you, and I truly cannot wait until I hug you again and we can go on this journey of recovery with me, my father, my aunt, my uncle, your boyfriend, your sister, my autistic brother who doesn't even know what's happening now but loves my sister so dearly. I just can't wait to be with her and help her recover through this intense trauma.
And it will be. Ben, thank you very much. Thank you for sharing her story with us.
Thank you.
And next, Hezbollah now calling for a, quote, day of unprecedented rage. And there are protests, they call them days of rage. This one has been called a day of unprecedented rage against Israel. Is the militant group about to join the fight in Gaza? We have a special report next, first here. Plus, also this hour, we're going to get an up-close look at the arsenal that Hamas used during its assault.
This is the wire command operation system with the timer fuse. You can just fire it up, the IED, the rocket, the motor, whatever I want.
It's true. Contacts are great until they get dry. So we created new BioTrue Hydration Boost for contacts for a boost of moisture that lasts up to 8 hours. So all kinds of contacts can stay comfortable throughout the day. And it's preservative free. Stay BioTrue to your eyes.
Got a feeling I can't escape it. Feeling good, but yet the grave, 'cause I reinvent.
For the life you're making, Etsy has it.
I had 8 UTIs in 1 year. This inspired me and my partner Spencer to launch Eucora. Eucora makes effective urinary tract health products.
It truly works miracles.
The peace of mind I've been looking for.
Go to eucora.com to learn more.
It's electric. It's gas.
Quite the paradox.
It really is both. The first ever Lexus RX plug-in hybrid.
You're giving me a good feeling.
We tell the stories that matter most.
You're giving me a good feeling. Yes, you do.
From the moment you touch down in Victoria, you'll know you're in a world apart. This is a place like no other. Let your curiosity lead you through unforgettable moments, where you're connected to nature, each other, and a local culture full of creativity and history that welcomes everyone. Your story unfolds in Victoria.
We believe people deserve to be treated with compassion and dignity. We treat our patients completely free of charge and without regard to race, religion, or politics. Doctors Without Borders has provided free, life-saving medical care for over 50 years. And thanks to the 6 million people around the world who support our work, Doctors Without Borders will continue to put our patients first. Join Poppy and Phil on CNN This Morning, tomorrow at 6 Eastern.
Breaking news, there are hundreds of protesters taking to the streets in Lebanon after 2:30 this morning, clashing with security forces and trying to break through security barriers near the U.S. Embassy north of Beirut. The protests coming just after a deadly blast at a hospital in Gaza that happened late tonight, which Israel blames on a terror group called Islamic Jihad based in Gaza, but Hamas says Israel is responsible for. The Lebanese militant group Hezbollah, meantime, is calling for a day of unprecedented rage against Israel. Matthew Chance is out front. And Matthew, these protests appear to be a clear sign that Hezbollah's call is being heard. There are a lot of people who are eager to hear it.
Yeah, in the region generally, not just in Lebanon, but in the countries surrounding Israel and in the greater Middle East. There's going to be a lot of anger, and there's already a lot of anger being expressed by what's happened. I suppose the big question from our point of view here in northern Israel is what impact is that day of rage going to have here, where the security situation and tensions are already dangerously high.
This is the mayhem on Israel's northern border. Not yet a full-scale war with Hezbollah in Lebanon, but it's on the brink. So far, exchanges have been limited. Hezbollah firing several anti-tank missiles like this one across the valley towards Israeli positions. Israeli officials focused on destroying Hamas in the south, so they will also target Hezbollah if the Iranian-backed militia further intervenes. We'll make sure we win every confrontation, Israel's top military commander tells troops on a visit to the north. If Hezbollah makes this mistake and strikes us, he says, it will be destroyed. The Israeli military says it's already killed 4 people trying to infiltrate its northern border from Lebanon to plant explosives, although Israeli officials, keen to avoid a second frontier, say the point of escalation has not yet been reached. But Iran, which supports Hezbollah, says it won't stand by forever as Israel pounds the Gaza Strip. They're not looking for an expansion of the war, says the Iranian foreign minister, but you can't tell Hezbollah to show restraint while allowing Israel to commit whatever crimes you like against civilians, he says. It's hardly an assurance, and Israeli forces are evacuating border villages and bolstering northern defences, acknowledging they face a powerful threat from a Lebanese militia with a vast arsenal of missiles, but ready to fight if necessary, they say, on two fronts.
Well, Aaron, the latest casualty toll in that hospital blast, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry, which is of course controlled by Hamas, is that hundreds of people have died. And again, big question tonight here in northern Israel is what the impact will be on the security situation here.
All right, thank you very much, Matthew Chance, up along that the northern Israel-Lebanon border. And out front now, Lieutenant Colonel Jonathan Conricus, spokesperson for Israel's Defense Forces. Colonel, of course, we meet again here, as we do almost every night. You've made it very clear that the IDF says that this is a failed rocket launch by Islamic Jihad that's responsible for the Gaza hospital strike, a strike in which, of course, hundreds appear to have died. Hamas, of course, blames Israel. So I know that you've shared information about the blast with the United States. Can you tell us what that evidence entailed, or at least what type of evidence it is, why you are so confident you can prove that this was Islamic Jihad?
Yes, good evening or good night, Erin. Because of the magnitude and the sensitivity, and because what we see that our enemies are trying to do with this fake event, we did a thorough investigation, and the information was seen and personally approved by the highest levels of command in the IDF. Now, what we have and what we're going to share, and this will happen momentarily, I suppose, within the hour, I hope, information will be out, which shows two things. Both footage of the event from above, from an Israeli UAV, and, very tellingly, a conversation between Hamas terrorists, which was intercepted by us, where they discuss the fact that, there appears to have been a malfunction or an explosion by a rocket which landed short inside the Gaza Strip. And that is, of course, very authentic and very telling of exactly what happened. We also, to be on the safe side, cross-checked all our systems, first and foremost to make sure that we did not fire in the area, and then we looked at the radar, which tracks enemy incoming fire, and we saw that there was a barrage of rockets that was fired from mid or northern Gaza Strip towards Israel, exactly at the time or a little bit before the explosion reportedly happened, which was caught in our systems and perfectly corresponds with the information that we have.
All right, so you said you're going to be putting all that, as you said, hopefully in the next hour or so. And Colonel Conricus, of course, the world will be looking at that. The reality, of course, as you and I know, is that when this happened, protests started. They started in Ramallah, they started in Amman, they started in Baghdad, they started in Beirut. The summit that President Biden was supposed to have tomorrow with the crucial leaders of the Arab countries involved in this situation was canceled. All of that has already happened. How concerned are you about these protests and the fact that they may grow as they already have been called to by Hezbollah?
Yes, isn't it amazing how fast fake news spread and how much they're leveraged? Yes, it is concerning because we find ourselves, unfortunately, in a combustible situation where we have armed enemies all around us who appear to be extremely aggressive and want a confrontation. Gaza, Hamas, the organization that governs the Gaza Strip, started it, and we are now in the early stages of defeating Hamas, which will be done eventually. And it appears that other terrorist organizations that are also under the Iranian umbrella want to do the same. That is, of course, very dangerous for the region. We have made it very clear that this wasn't the war that we wanted, but it is a war that we intend to finish with the complete dismantling of Hamas as a military entity. And we have also said to Hezbollah and anybody else that we strongly encourage them not to attack. Today, the state of
If Hamas can kill babies, they can also kill the truth. Hamas that can kill babies will also kill the truth. Flagrantly, without batting an eye, Hamas kills babies. Well, I wouldn't doubt that they could also kill the truth. Watch out. If Hamas can go so low to kill babies, what makes you think that it can't kill truth with ease? Hamas is a killer. Hamas is a killer. Hamas is a killer. Hamas is a killer. If it'll kill babies, men and women, children, elderly, what makes you think it won't kill truth? Kill the truth, no matter what it may be. Kill the truth, so it will appear to be. Something else that they want it to be to mold public opinion and slant things again and again. If Hamas can kill babies, then it can also kill the truth.
When they managed to open only one window, they just threw grenades inside.
That was a song by Paul Beckman, Paul the Rainbow Song. If Hamas can kill babies, it can kill the truth. Created by Paul Beckman, Paul the Rainbow Song, also the new and first leader of humankind in the free world. Created October 17th, 2023. For an explanation of my mainstream name, New Age name, and the utterance, also the new and first leader of humankind in the free world, please go to Internet Solutions and Songs 24-7 at Palu Rainbow Song Bio on YouTube. Look for a playlist called Movie Song Reviews by Palu. There, look for some videos and song videos that are in the category of a special note. There'll be an explanation for all that plus more. Thank you very much. Namaste. I honor the divine and all.